In this video, we are going to be talking about the governance board of charter schools and the obligations of the governance board in general and how the board meets those obligations. So the first thing that, as you see on this slide, and we talked about in the last video, if you watched that, is that the governance board is the entity that is responsible for operating a charter school. I likened it to the school board of a public school district. It is ultimately the entity that's responsible for operating the charter school. And the duties of the governance board are to ensure that the school operates in compliance with state and federal law with respect to students and employees, to provide students and the parents with information that they need to comply with the rules and expectations of the school. The governance board's duties are to hire and promote and terminate and evaluate the employees of the charter school. Even if you are a district authorized charter school, in the charter contract, you probably have provisions that talk about that collaboration with the school district with respect to hiring and evaluating those charter school employees. If you are not a non-instrumentality of a school district, or if you are a 2X or a 2R charter school, you are the employer and you are responsible for all of those actions. You are also, very importantly, responsible for managing charter school funds, which, remember, your charter school receives public funds. And as such, you are the body that has to ensure those public funds are spent appropriately. Those funds come from state aid, when you talk about per pupil aid, and they come from state and federal grant money, as well as, in some cases, additional fundraising that a charter school may do. The governance board is also responsible for supporting community relations. What you discover, and I'm sure many of you watching this know, just from your own workings with students in school, is that the governance board is sort of that voice out into the community. It is it's responsible for ensuring that there's transparency with the community, that the community knows about the charter school, and that there's good relationships with the community that is supporting the school. So I want to just take a minute to stop again, is because I think this is a really important point to make as you are, if you're in the process of developing a charter school, if you are in the process of reviewing your charter school contracts or expanding or figuring out how you move forward or evaluating the school as you move forward. It's important to remember that the governance board of a charter school is responsible for operating the charter school, for making sure it complies with the charter contract, and for complying with state and federal law. I think when people agree to be on a board of directors of a non-stock or a nonprofit organization, in their mind, because lots of people have done it, and you need lots of experience doing that, in your mind, you tend to think of a board that comes together about once a month, talks about some of the issues, kind of develops a little bit of a strategy, helps with some of the fundraising, and goes home. But when you talk about a governance board of a charter school, their tasks and responsibilities are much greater. They really do run like a board of education, and their involvement, their knowledge, their work in ensuring that the charter school operations are set up correctly and that the charter school is complying with all of its obligations. Those are some pretty onerous tasks, and I think it's important to keep that in mind as you are looking for charter school board members and moving forward. So when you talk about the governance board, what obligates the governance board? Well, certainly Wisconsin statutes include obligations of a governance board. That are explicitly applicable to charter schools, to private schools, and recipients of state and federal funds. You have state non-discrimination laws. You have federal civil rights laws, Title IX, Title VI, Title VII. You have federal disability laws, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is IDEA and governs special education. Section 504, which is a anti-discrimination law that requires a school to accommodate and provide accommodations to an individual with a disability. In addition to the laws, both state and federal, a governance board is also obligated by the charter contract that we talked about in the last video. That charter contract delineates the governance board's obligations. And the governance board is also obligated by whatever policies the authorizer determines or requires the governance board to abide by. So in some district authorized charter schools, when I look in those contracts, I see that that charter school governance board has agreed to abide by all district policies. Sometimes I see that it has agreed to abide by only certain ones, the discipline policies, the non-discrimination policy, the no weapons policy, things like that. But certainly when you talk about where do you look to determine what a governance board's obligations are, the charter contract certainly is one of those places. When you think about a charter school governance board, and you think about one that's either authorized by a school district or one that's a 2R or a 2X, think to yourself, does your governance board realize that they are subject to the open meetings law? Do they hold open meetings? Do they post notices? Do they follow the procedures and rules and regulations when they hold committee meetings? Do they understand their obligations under the open meetings law? And more importantly, do they understand what happens if they violate the open meetings law? Do they know they're subject to the open records law? Are the emails that they are using to correspond with respect to the school's business, are those school district emails? Does your charter school have a separate email that they issue to those governance board members for official business? Because when someone makes an open records request with respect to records of your charter school, it can require that you go back and do searches of your governance board members' emails for emails that have to do with whatever public or official business they've engaged in with respect to the charter school. So does the board have knowledge about open records? Do they know what that means? Does the board know they are subject to non-discrimination laws? Non-discrimination in terms of race, religion, sex, disability, all of those protected classes that are set out in both state and federal law. Federal and state special education. The law is clear that charter schools have to comply with the special education laws idea. If you are a 2X and a 2R charter school, your governance board, your school is the local educational agency for purposes of special education, which means the requirements under special education, you are responsible for those, for providing those services, for ensuring that students have an appropriate program. The same holds true for 504, Section 504, with respect to students with disabilities, and the ADA. Is your charter school located in a building that's accessible? Is your website accessible to individuals? All of those apply to you. And Title IX. Title IX is the law that prohibits discrimination based on sex. Title VI, which is discrimination based upon race. So you have all of those laws, and those are just a handful of them. But does your governance board recognize that that the governance board is subject to these, and really do they recognize what they are required to comply with as they operate the school? When you talk about meeting your obligations, you look at, are you a district authorized charter school? Are you a charter school under 2X? Are you a charter school under 2R? Your obligations may differ depending on those. All public charter schools are going to have the same obligations in terms of the federal discrimination laws or bullying laws in Wisconsin or things like that. But there may be other specific obligations with respect to a 2X charter school, with respect to a 2R charter school, or the different kinds of district authorized. So as you're determining what are our obligations, keep in mind you want to look at those in the context of what type of charter school you are. When you are looking at what your obligations are, and we talked about authorizer policies, usually in a charter contract, what you will see is that there will be provisions talking about the authorizer policies that you're subject to. What are those mandatory policies? Sometimes it's health and safety, sometimes it's discipline and assessments, mandatory reporting. Are there policies that your district has that you want to adopt? I certainly would say if you're a governance board and you are talking about what types of policies you are going to have that govern your student body and your parents and your curriculum and all those sorts of things, you start with your district, your school district policies, and see what they have and determine which ones and whether or not you're going to adopt certain ones. If you're non-instrumentality charter school, you're going to be looking at to get HR policies. You certainly can look at your district policies, but you're going to look at HR policies, your special ed policies, policies that that you are going to be required to have in place because you are essentially the employer now. 2R or 2X charter schools, are there any mandatory policies that your authorizers require? Generally speaking, when you talk about higher ed institutions, they are not going to have the policies in terms of the number of policies that are required that sometimes we see with school districts. But all of that should be spelled out in your charter contract. And so when you think about as a governance board member or an individual who's starting a governance or starting a charter school or the administrator of a charter school, consider as one of the bigger issues as you move forward, consider one of the bigger issues being, what is our governance board obligated to do? And where do we look in determining what our obligations are? And in the next video, we're going to talk about what is a way to meet those obligations and to ensure that we're governing our school in a way that complies with state and federal law and in a way that complies with our charter contract.